Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dakota Hufford, and I am the Communications and Program Coordinator for CRBC. And I'm joined by Amy Barton, our Communications and Stewardship Manager. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our third of now 6 webinar series designed to help you be a better steward of your land here in the Clackamas Basin. And so quickly, our schedule is a very brief CRBC intro. We're going to talk about beaver biology. We're going to talk about beaver ecology and their environmental impacts. We'll talk a little bit about regulations, get into some solutions, and then have a Q&A session at the end. So our goals for today are that we hope you can take away some basic beaver biology, as well as the ecology and how they impact the landscape. We also hope that you leave here today with a knowledge of solutions and resources of where to go if you do have beaver issues on your land. And we do want to hear from you, but in an effort to conserve time, we'll ask that you hold your questions till the end of the presentation, at which time we have our wildlife biologist, Isaac Sanders, on the call, and he will be here to answer all of your burning beaver questions.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today. Here at the Clackamas River Basin Council, our mission is to foster partnerships for clean water, to improve fish and wildlife habitat, and enhance the quality of life for those who live, work, and recreate within the Clackamas River Basin. CRBC is a 501c3 nonprofit watershed council, and for the past 25 years plus, we have been invested in restoring and protecting the Clackamas River and all of its tributaries. Our work includes increasing shade along waterways with native plants and trees, controlling noxious weeds, large wood and side channel enhancement projects, wildfire recovery, nature education, and restoring habitat for a host of wildlife, including our beavers. And before I turn it back over to Dakota, I have a land designation statement to share with you all. Many of us are joining this call from Oregon and Washington, and we'd like to take a moment to recognize that we are gathered on the unceded lands of many Native peoples. We ask you to join us in acknowledging the many communities, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement demonstrates a commitment to beginning the process of working to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. We thank those who came before us for their stewardship of these lands and waters, and those who continue to steward them now and into the future. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. All right, and now we are just going to dig into some beaver content. So we're going to talk about beaver biology. So beavers are the largest rodents in North America. They can weigh on average about 40 pounds, and they can measure up to 3 feet in length. They are semi-aquatic, so they have nose and ears that have membranes that are able to seal out the water, so they can spend prolonged time underneath the water. And they have webbed hind feet and large incisor teeth with a broad, flat tail. They do have poor eyesight, but they have excellent hearing and a good sense of smell. They live to be up to around 5 to 10 years old in the wild, and their sharp incisor teeth are used to cut trees and peel bark while they're eating. And they are harder on the front surface than they are on the back. So the back wears faster, creating a sharp edge that really helps them to cut through that wood. Just like all rodents, their incisors will continually grow, but they get worn down by that grinding and tree cutting as they're eating that bark. Beavers are territorial, and they like to mark their territory by creating small mounds of mud with leaves and sticks, and then they cover their little mounds with their oil, which is super pungent, called castoreum. So beavers were once the most widely distributed mammals in North America, but they were trapped almost to extinction in the 1800s to meet a heavy demand for beaver pelts and furs. And then a subsequent decline in demand for those furs, coupled with the proper wildlife management, has allowed beavers to reestablish quite healthily in much of their former range, and they're now pretty common in a lot of areas, including our urban settings. And then so beavers will sometimes mate for life, if not or for many years, if not for life. So beavers breed in Oregon generally between January and March, and they have litters of up 1 to 8 kits. The average is 4, and they are generally born between April and June. The numbers of kits born is closely related to the amount of food available. So obviously more food, more kits, and also the female's age. The female beaver, mom beaver, will nurse the kits until they're about 10 to 12 weeks, and then they will wean. However, most kits will remain with their adults until they're about 2 years old, but some will leave as early as 11 months. And sometimes a few females will stay back in a colony until they're up to 3 years old. The kits then go off in search of their own mates and suitable spots and begin their own colonies, and sometimes get pretty far away from their original home. Beavers do live in colonies, and they can contain up to 12 individuals. The colony is usually made up of an adult breeding pair, kits from that year, and then kits from the previous year.
All right, let's talk about some beaver ecology, starting with their habitats. Beavers are found across the state of Oregon in suitable habitats. They're almost always found in riparian areas. So, there we go. So that's that strip of land along both sides of a waterway, that riparian zone. They prefer areas bordered by a zone of trees, especially cottonwood, aspen, willow, alder, and maple. They really like those. Streams with a constant flow of water that meander through relatively flat terrain and fertile valleys are especially productive of beavers. That terrain might sound familiar to you if you live in the Pacific Northwest. We've got a lot of flat terrain and fertile valleys. Beaver populations are limited by their habitat availability. The density of beavers appears not to exceed about 1 colony per half mile, even under the best habitat conditions. So now getting into their food, beavers eat the leaves, inner bark, and twigs of aspen, alder, cottonwood, willow, and other deciduous trees. They will also eat shrubs, ferns, aquatic plants, grasses, blackberries, and even agricultural crops. The tree bark that beavers eat is indigestible by humans, but beavers are able to digest 30% or so of the cellulose they ingest through a fermentation by special intestinal microorganisms in their gut, which is pretty cool. Most foraging is done within around 165 feet of the water's edge in that riparian area. In areas with few predators and a leaner food supply, you may see toppled trees and other signs of foraging about twice that distance from the den site. So they will venture off farther away from their den if there's less food. And foraging levels are most intense during late fall and even earlier in cold winter areas of Oregon as the beavers prepare for winter. When the surface of the water is frozen, beavers eat bark and stems from a food cache anchored to the bottom of the waterway for winter use. And food caches are seldom found where winters are comparatively mild, such as the lowlands of Western Oregon. So we might not see those caches here.
Okay, and so now we'll talk a little bit about the structures that beavers create. So beavers build dams to create deep water for protection from predators, for access to their food supply, and to provide underwater entrances to their den. Resultant moist soil from that dam creation promotes growth of their favorite foods. So they're little farmers almost. Beavers living on water bodies that maintain a constant level, like lakes or large rivers, don't usually build dams. They'll go for either a lodge or a den. And dams are constructed and maintained with whatever materials are available and around, either wood, stones, mud, and plant parts. And they can vary in size from super small, just a super small accumulation of woody material, to structures that are pretty big and impressive, up to 10 feet high and 165 feet wide. The sound of flowing water stimulates beavers to build dams. However, they do routinely let in a leak of water freely through the dam, especially during times of high waters. Beavers keep their dams in good repair and will constantly maintain them as the water level increases in their ponds. And a family of beavers may build and maintain one or several dams in their territory. In cold areas, dam maintenance is critical. Dams must be able to hold enough water so the pond won't freeze to the bottom, which would cut off their access to their winter food supply. And so depending on the type of water body and the geographic area that they're in, beavers construct lodges or bank dens as a place to rest, stay warm, give birth, and raise their young. The image on the right here shows a bank den near the Clackamas River that Amy took. These may look like burrows in a riverbank or the more familiar lodges in the water or on the shore. Both burrows and lodges consist of one or more underwater entrances, a feeding area, a dry nest den, and a source of fresh air. Lodges consist of a mound of branches and logs plastered with mud. One or more underwater openings leads to tunnels that meet at the center of the mound where a single chamber is created. Bank dens are dug into the banks of streams and large ponds, and beavers may or may not build a lodge over them. Bank dens may also be located under stumps, logs, or docks. And all family members concentrate on repairing the family lodge or den in the late fall, earlier in colder winter areas of Oregon, and this is to prepare for the winter. And one feature that I did not mention here are slides. And slides you can generally find, they look just like a little slide, and they use them to slide on their bellies right into their dens.
Okay, beavers are our ultimate ecosystem engineers. They are also a keystone species. That means that they have a disproportionate, large effect on their surrounding environment. Their dams are capable of increasing water storage, resulting in a more stable water supply and mitigation of higher flows downstream for a longer period of time. Their ponds store carbon and help reduce climate impacts. And new research suggests that beaver-engineered wetlands may create natural fire breaks and help prevent the spread of wildfires. And to show how impactful beavers can be on the landscape, the image on the right of the screen shows satellite imagery from NASA. NASA is working with conservation groups and ranchers in Idaho to track how beaver reintroduction changes the landscape and contributes to healthier watersheds. So from space, you can see the increase in vegetation in the reintroduced beaver area on the left versus the no beaver area on the right of the image. So their dams, lodges, and dens create complex habitat, not only for themselves, but also for many aquatic and terrestrial wildlife. So fish in particular benefit greatly from the ponds that result from beaver dams. The dams help vulnerable young fish like salmon and trout get through their first year by providing plenty of woody debris, which helps them hide from predators. They also provide winter pool habitat that is important for fish such as cutthroat trout and coho. And beaver ponds help store lots of leaf litter in the water that in turn supports aquatic insect populations, such as the mayfly in the image on the right. Insects are the foundation of the food web and feed fish, amphibians, waterfowl, bats, and songbirds. So very important to have lots of healthy insect populations. And beaver dams also contribute to improved nesting and brood rearing areas for waterfowl in ponds and surrounding areas, including the wood ducks in the image on the left. And the trees that may die as a result of the rising water levels leave behind lots of snags, which provides homes for cavity nesting birds. Excuse me. Mammals also benefit. So beaver ponds attract and provide habitat for mink and river otter, muskrats, Also for reptiles and amphibians, turtles, frogs, and salamanders, like the slender salamander in the middle. That is an image that Dakota took. So the increase in growth of vegetation provides additional forage for cover for a variety of wildlife, such as big game and birds. So the benefits to wildlife are far-reaching, and beavers can also help provide landowners and community members with improved outdoor spaces as well. So for private landowners, beaver dams can create wetlands, which can control downstream flooding by storing and slowly releasing water, and that reduces the severity of high stream flows, particularly, after winter storms and spring snow melt. The wetlands they create improve water quality overall as well by removing or transforming excess nutrients, trapping silt, binding and removing toxic chemicals, and filtering sediment. The Clackamas River is a drinking water source for over 300,000 Oregonians. So even if you're nowhere near a stream, a beaver may be helping keep your tap water clean. Beaver dams facilitate groundwater recharge and help raise the groundwater table. This promotes vegetative growth, which in turn helps stabilizes stream banks, which minimizes erosion. And in some areas, beaver dams have been a major factor in building up soil and meadows and reducing the impact of invasive vegetation. Beaver dams reduce water velocity, reducing channel scouring and stream bank erosion. And they also attract a variety of fish and wildlife that provide recreational and aesthetic values to landowners.
Okay, so we'll talk just briefly about trapping and some of the regulations surrounding beaver. So trapping, like most, if not all, human technologies, has changed dramatically over the last several hundred years. Traps and trapping systems have made tremendous advances since the 1800s, when beaver were nearly eliminated from the landscape. Today, all regulated trappers in Oregon must first complete a study course and successfully pass a written test to show an acceptable level of knowledge of animal behavior, current laws and regulations, and trapping skills. Modern science-based information is used to establish strict laws which are enforced by the Oregon State Police, which allows regulated trappers to harvest beaver during authorized season using state-of-the-art traps and techniques. Such trapping systems are a benefit by removing damage-causing beaver while maintaining healthy and abundant beaver populations, and the vast majority of beaver trapped today fall into this damage category. I encourage everyone to check out the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife website. There is a whole page on fur bearer regulations if you'd like any more information on that. And then in July of 2023, so just this last summer, House Bill 3464 was voted into effect and is effective as of 2024. This House bill requires landowners to obtain a permit from ODFW if they intend to use lethal methods for beaver killing or beaver removal on private lands. This also mandates that you report all beaver killings to ODFW. Before this bill was passed, in the state of Oregon, beavers were classified as rodents under ORS 610, which led to the unrestricted lethal removal without permits or reporting. So this House Bill 3464, it redefines their classification in the state and redesignates beavers as fur bearers on private lands, which aligns with their existing classification on public lands. This is similar to other animals like foxes and raccoons that fall under the fur bearer category. So this is brand new. It's just coming into effect. Only time will tell how it pans out, but it is good to be aware.
Okay, so should you take action? If you are sharing your land with beavers, the Tualatin River Watershed Council has helped to create an assessment and a flow chart of when and if action is necessary. So before you take action, ask yourself these questions. The first one is, can I live with what is happening? Sometimes beavers cause changes that are new to us, but aren't necessarily dangerous. So in the right places, beavers have many benefits. If it is safe, learning to live with beavers as neighbors can be a good solution. If the answer to this question is no, then we go to the next question. Do I need to call someone? So for this one, we're going to refer to the flow chart that we're going to share in the following slides. The third question is, can I fix the problem myself? If you are the property manager, and the answer is yes, if you can do it yourself. Yes, you can do it yourself, sorry. If you do not own the property, then find out who to call using the flow chart resources on the following slides. If the problem is flooding, the answer is no. The recommendation is that you call a professional. Okay, so ideally, you will find a way to live with the beavers. However, sometimes there is no safe way to do this. There are many do-it-yourself and professional options that can help us live with beaver. We recommend allowing them to remain in their homes because they are an important species and they are important to the health of our ecosystem. Removing beavers may not solve the problems on your property and will only serve as a temporary solution. If the habitat is suitable, new beavers will likely soon arrive. So working with one beaver family is easier than removing many beaver families over time, and the cost of continued removal is often more expensive than using coexistence methods, which can last several years. If removing beavers from your property is the only option, we recommend hiring a professional to lethally trap them. Relocating live beavers is not feasible or humane. So be prepared to ask a professional what techniques they use to trap beavers and what they will do with the beavers once they are trapped. Beavers are territorial wild animals, and they can vector several serious diseases and bacteria and should be approached with serious caution. So please do not attempt to approach or interact with a beaver without the proper guidance. Okay, this is the flow chart that we were referencing in the previous slides. And this chart outlines the process of deciding if action is necessary or if an agency should be called. So we'll send this out and make it available on our website and through the YouTube recording so you can review it at your own pace. And the flow chart addresses and advises on property ownership, what problems the beavers are creating, like flooding, whether or not you can live with the issue, pipe plugging, and finally, removal if necessary. So we encourage you to explore this chart on your own and see if this is useful for you.
Okay, and now we are going to talk about some solutions and resources. And I just noticed my pictures are covering up some of my slide, but that's okay because we're only going to be talking about sand painting for right now. So these are feasible solutions that you can do on your own property to prevent beaver chewing of the trees and plants that you like. One option is sand painting, and this is one of the most simple and low cost options, and where you are just basically painting tree trunks with a mixture of sand and paint. This method will work well on your farms, natural areas, backyards, and works best on trees with smooth bark, but try it on all of them. It works because the beavers don't like the feeling of sand in their mouth and they'll just stop chewing. And unlike the cages that we'll talk about in the next slide, the paint will never restrict the tree growth. The how-to is you make a mixture of about 1 part sand with 6 parts paint and match the color to the best of your ability to the tree trunk, and then simply paint from the ground to at least 4 feet above the ground. Okay, and then some other solutions for preventing beaver chew is tree fencing. So for this, you just want to place a wire fence around trees that you want to protect. Beavers won't be able to chew through the fence, and it works, you know, for single trees or small groups of trees together. There should definitely be some space between the fence and the tree. If the fence is too tight, it will damage the tree as it grows. You will just want to wrap the tree using thick wire mesh fencing, not chicken wire. It is not strong enough. And use fencing with holes that are 2 inches by 4 inches apart or wide. The fence should be at least 4 feet tall and 1 to 2 feet away from the trunk. And definitely you will want to check the fencing as the tree is growing to make sure that there's space and not damaging the tree, and then check fencing after any flooding to ensure that it is secure. And another solution to prevent chewing overall is, while you're designing your space, go ahead and pick some strategic plants that you think that the beavers might not prefer. Plant species that they won't chew or that won't die if they do get chewed. Beavers prefer some plants like willows and big leaf maples over others. So plants like Oregon grape and spirea are not super tasty. However, keeping in mind that if beavers do get hungry enough, they will eat anything. And so we just encourage you to use, we have a beaver preferred plant list that has a spectrum of their preferences, and that'll be available in the resource section. And then we also encourage you to work with either backyard habitat certification program or the Clackamas Soil and Water Conservation District, or reach out to us if you have plant questions. And finally, if you are experiencing flooding issues from beavers, their dams will back up and create ponds and wetlands. And these, as we've discussed thoroughly, are super important to the ecology of an area, but they can be very distressing to human residents. So professionals can lower water to safe levels without harming the beavers by installing certain kinds of flow devices. However, permits are likely required to install these flow devices, and the designs need to be approved by ODFW and a professional consultancy. So we encourage highly that you work with a professional group to install any devices to take care of flooding. Installing these devices yourself can be dangerous and may cause unintended consequences to wildlife. So we have a find a beaver safe contractor search tool also in the resources section of this presentation.
Okay, so another idea for preventing damage to live plants is beaver caching. And we are very excited to share this with you because this is a new concept that's just kind of emerging from observational data. And the idea is that if we can gather stems and branches from tasty trees in a sustainable way, so like not taking too much from one plant and building a cache of these branches, that the beavers will then use that cache of branches before they will chew on live plants. So it's a way to kind of attract them to that cache and deter them from eating the plants that you want to keep. So CRBC has done one pilot cache project, and you can see pictures from that project here on the screen. You can see that it was a group of students, and on the lower right-hand side, you can see the actual cache that was built. The landowner on which this cache was built let us know that the beavers did use the cache. And we went and checked it out later, and there were, chewed sticks and things like that in the space where the cache once was. So that does indicate that this could positively benefit some landowners if they have beaver on their property and want to, attract them to certain areas and avoid them chewing on things they want to keep. So this is a great volunteer activity. So for those of you who are listening, if you are in watershed science and outreach, you can consider this for a project, and please let us know how it worked. And for community members, consider joining us at one of our volunteer events or another organizations for a beaver cache work party in the future. They're super fun. Okay, so you can be a friend to our beavers. You may not live along a creek or a stream. However, you can still help beavers in your own space, even if you are a good distance from any waterway. Beavers are aquatic animals, so protecting water quality is key. Runoff from our homes and businesses eventually makes it into our water supply. So we can help protect that water by doing a variety of things, including reducing our pesticide use. The Clackamas River Basin Council offers a pesticide-free or pesticide-wise pledge that you can take, and we'll send you a free yard sign. A picture of that sign is on the upper right-hand side. Metro also offers a pesticide pledge program, and they'll send you a free yard sign to proudly display. That's the ladybug sign on the bottom right there. And if you're out of the Portland Metro, there are paid options for signs, including signs from Beyond Pesticides. You can also do things like reduce or avoid fertilizers, de-icers, and pressure washing. These chemicals and landscape practices can harm our local waterways. We do have another webinar all about that called How to Protect Water Quality at Home on our YouTube channel. And if you do share your land with beavers and you need help, the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife is the best place to start, as well as other the resources page attached to this presentation, which you will receive in an email. And if you're watching this as a recording, please reach out to us at info@clackamasriver.org for any beaver resources.
Okay, thank you so much again for joining us. Please consider joining us for one of our upcoming webinars in February, March, April, and May with the respective themes of how to build a rain garden, pesticide alternatives, attracting beneficial insects, and firescaping. And with that, we will go ahead and open it up for any questions or comments that anyone has.